Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican and welcome to another Railway Empire video. In this one, we're going to wrap up our first look at the coffee barons, and we're going to, I'm actually not going to show you all the gameplay because there's another almost 2 hours left of gameplay. And at this point, I personally am getting bored with the scenario. I'm ready to go figure out a new one. My favorite thing to do is the start of a scenario and figure out the strategy that's going to really make this, if you will, make the execution easy. And the actual doing it gets a little tedious after a while for me. So what I'm going to do here is show you the strategies you can use to really knock out these last three tasks. Our last three tasks are to ship a whole bunch of chocolate, ship a bunch of toys, and buy Beatrix. So right now we're working on the chocolate. We're going to run, we set up a warehouse over near Sao Paulo, and we're going to run a line from quantities, where we have chocolate, over to that warehouse, which will give us greater demand. We're going to keep pumping up leveling up the chocolate factory, and then making sure that we have cocoa and sugar coming in there to level those up appropriately so we can keep shipping that stuff in there on our dedicated lines, and really start moving the chocolate over to that warehouse. And that's going to allow every city that's connected with that warehouse, including Sao Paulo, to have chocolate and consume it and make us more money. But the main thing it's going to do is let us ship the chocolate faster. So there's step number one, is take our chocolate from quantities and move it to a warehouse. At the same time that we're building up our chocolate, we still want to deal with Beatrix. So I thought about this, you could just wait and buy her in a big chunk. I keep saying this, seems like every video. But I decided to buy her off in kind of big chunks, like 25% chunks. So that's what I want to do here. I'm kind of just taking a look at where we stand relative to her and how expensive is it going to be. And we see that to buy like 25% of her is going to be, what is that, like 15 million, 13, 14, 15 million, something like that. And you can see where our cash is racking up very quickly now. So rather than just waiting to the end, I'm making money faster. I can spend it as far as laying track and stuff. So whatever I want to do to, like another warehouse or another line, or upgrade a station or whatever, buy more trains, get plenty of money. So even if you kind of spend a big chunk of it, you got plenty coming back. So just waiting for enough funds to buy off 25% of Beatrix, and that's just an arbitrary number. There's no rhyme or reason for 25 versus 20 or whatever. But then I see I've got a couple of saboteurs, so I thought, well, why not go out and mess her up a little bit while we're at it. I didn't really study this to get the most bang for my buck here. I probably should have gone out and said, okay, what's her biggest factory making her the most money, and that kind of thing. But again, one of my faults as a player is after I've got a few hours on one of these scenarios, I'm ready for the next one. So earlier when I said I'm getting bored with this, I don't mean I'm getting bored with making this video for you. I mean, literally while I'm playing this game, I'm thinking, well, I got this. All right, I've got this one done. It's just a matter of finishing it off. So there we go. We buy 25% of Beatrix, and now we can turn our attention back to chocolate. And you can see we're doing okay. Got 79 shipped already, so we're getting there. So here we're going to bump that chocolate factory all the way up to a level 5 and just max out the production. So we're making 8 chocolate a week just in this one chocolate factory. And the only way we can get away with that is having that line that is running the chocolate over to that warehouse. It would bog down and stop production if we had met the demand in quantities and Uberaba and Sao Paulo and wherever that chocolate can go. And so that warehouse is what's allowing us to keep that production up so high. And also, based on the mechanics of the game, we're making a ton of money on that chocolate factory at the same time as it keeps shipping the goods. So here I'm just kind of cleaning up. When I built the cocoa line going to Contige, I got it all done and then forgot to put towers in. Of course, my favorite mistake. But I got that cleaned up, and now the chocolate is just being pumped at a tremendous rate out of Contige. Now, our chocolate production is good, but we want it to be even better. So we have a nice situation here in Piranha because we've got sugar coming into a warehouse there. We've got cocoa coming into a warehouse there. That warehouse is connected to Piranha, and we've got a chocolate factory there in Piranha. So we are going to use a similar tactic here, only in this case, we're actually going to build a warehouse just outside of Piranha and start shipping goods out to that warehouse, similar to the little exploit we did with that coffee. We're going to build a warehouse so that we have high demand for the chocolate, and then we're going to just have a little short train run that loads up chocolate in Piranha and keeps moving it out to that warehouse out away from the city. That way the city will keep producing chocolate. And now we'll have two large chocolate factories pumping chocolate out into a warehouse. So we'll get that chocolate done pretty quickly this way. And this one's even easier to set up than the one out of Contige because well, one, we got a nice clean track here. There's not a lot going on in Piranha except for the two-city cluster with Montes Claros, and also because we've got that beautiful setup with the easy access to the sugar and cocoa in this part of the map. So same thing here. To finish off the chocolate, pump up, expand your chocolate factory in Piranha and run it out to a warehouse so that it'll keep producing. It doesn't shut down when it doesn't see any demand out there, and you can quickly create your chocolate and get it shipped. And remember the key, when it says, the word they use is transport in English. They say transport X units of Y. So transport 200 units of chocolate. So that has to get on a train and move somewhere. You can't just make it. So that's why we're moving it to the warehouse or moving it between the cities or whatever. But the warehouse, you're actually transporting that chocolate somewhere, and that's how you can fulfill the task. And I'm making that distinction to contrast it with, sometimes you'll get an objective that says produce so many units of something. And notice that profit per week. There we just went up to level 5. But we're making $35,000 a week on chocolate that we're basically selling to a warehouse that goes nowhere. So a little exploit there, I guess. Now remember that we purchased Roger, merged with Roger, but we did not liquidate. So all his track and stuff's still out there. Haven't done anything with it until now. And the first thing I'm doing here is actually running a connection, the closest place I could find, Roger's stuff to our stuff, so that there's a connection and the whole thing is now considered one big network. And the only reason I'm doing that, the line has no purpose other than to give us the ability to go out if we needed to build if we wanted to go in another city or whatever. Now we're connected and we have no restrictions. It turns out I actually didn't use it. Look at this, Roger's got a lot of stuff here. Well, we do now. And of course, someone who's more diligent would go in and fire off lines and run city to city lines and feed all these industries and figure out which industries he has and which ones are, can make him money and all that good stuff. But I'm really done with this one at this point. Sorry. So what I'm going to do here is go out and just set up the things I absolutely need. And I did decide to run a little bit of easy pickings, like run meat into actually run a city to city line, Lima to Cusco, so they don't start losing population too much. And just a couple of simple things like that. But then even that, I just kind of only did so much of it. So this is just kind of taking Roger's infrastructure and say, okay, I'll just run it just the way it is. And so that's all I'm doing is just building a few lines that are going to kind of again, it'll generate some more profit and no harm in doing it. And so here we go. But the main thing, the whole reason we kept Roger's track, because normally I would just liquidate and take the money, is because we want to be able to get a steel industry going without having to ship iron and coal, 2,000 miles over to our infrastructure. So eventually we'll get into the iron and coal after we get this little bit done. So we're starting to look at the iron and coal, and the first thing we need, one of the things we need would be a steel industry, and we need a toy industry, obviously, because now we're thinking about the toys. You got to iron and coal to the steel, make steel, send it to the toys. The toys also need wood, and then you're good to go. So I'm looking to see where I can site things. Own a tailor and a brewery. We got them from Roger in Isa or Ika. Still can't decide how to say it. And here I did something really stupid. I'm showing you this as at full disclosure here. I deleted one of the industries thinking I'd rebuild it, but what I didn't realize is that Ika has degraded in population since we took it over and didn't keep feeding it stuff. And maybe that's a lesson learned for me. If you're going to keep the opponent's infrastructure, go ahead and pump some trains into it and keep those cities at least up to the point where they don't degrade. I think that's a lesson learned for me. So anyway, what happens is I take out the third industry, and now I can't put one back in. So whoops. So all I did there was eliminate an industry that was already existing, and I could have pumped some goods into it and made some money on it. So oops. But again, I'm kind of at that stage where I feel like the scenario is over, even though we still got all these toys to make, and chocolate's all handled now. Chocolates will be done pretty quickly, and then we've got to deal with Beatrix, which is a big deal. And you also notice, my observation is that when you get to that last person and you have a task to take them over, they start growing a little faster. It seems like they accelerate a little bit, and that's cool. That just makes it a little more of a challenge. Because they do put governors on those characters, and obviously at the level, if you've ever played, I'm sure you have. If you've played with normal competitors, you'll get to the end, you'll go, huh? All they did was 2 or 3 cities, and hard they'll do 4 or 5 cities or whatever. Well, very hard, of course, they get pretty big. They grow quite a bit. And toward the end, I think they just keep right on growing, just to make it more difficult, and particularly if it's supposed to be a hard challenge. So I'm kind of laying the stage for our next go-round, which is the third scenario. But enough of the preview. Let's get back to this one. So we bought that coal mine, and we're going to ship coal down to a warehouse. And this one is really clumsy. It's got a tiny little area up there, and you just have to be really careful where you put the station. It's just really hard to fit it all in there naturally, and that's realistic because it's a coal mine up on a mountain, and you got to figure out some way to get it down. And honestly, I would think in a full-blown transportation game, we would run trucks down that mountain, down to the city or wherever, or down to a train station, not try to put a train station up here on that mountain. But that's okay. This is a train game, so we're going to put a train station up there and run it right down that mountain. And a comment on inclines. You'll notice here, we're going to have a really steep incline. Now, why don't I care? Because the train is coming down that incline loaded, so going downhill is all they have to do is ride the brakes. There's no problem for a train to go downhill as long as they got some good brakes. And going uphill, they're empty, so what's the big deal? You know, an empty locomotive can go up a very steep incline. So you know, think about that when you're laying these out, because I know some people had the notion you should never go above a 5-degree inclination, and that's just not true. And honestly, on this map, unless you build some really circuitous routes, you have to go over that incline. You just don't have much choice. So I'm noodling around here. We're trying to decide the best way to hook up the system and get in there. And I'm going to fast forward through this again because I want to keep this down to one relatively short video to wrap this thing up. All right, so remember we didn't liquidate Roger, but that doesn't mean we can't liquidate him now. So what we're doing here is actually going, if I'm not going to take the time to try to take advantage of all the stuff that he left us, I've just cherry picked and kept what I need in order to have a steel industry in Lima and a toy industry in Cusco. And I've got logs going to Cusco. I've got the steel going back and forth on our city-to-city line between Lima and Cusco. I've got a warehouse out there outside of Cusco to ship the toys into so that we can speed up production and ramp it up. And really, I think I have a city-to-city or something going between Ica and Lima. So I kept that city, but everything else can go. And you'll notice we get refunds for all this. Now it's kind of tedious work to have to go out and delete all this, but that way you can kind of cherry pick what do you want out of the opponent's infrastructure that you took over, and what do you want money back from. So I'm just going to go through and delete all the lines and the stations and everything that I don't need for running what I'm planning to do, and getting back quite a bit of money out of this. I have no idea how much, and nor do I really care, but it's quite a bit of money. And obviously what I'm doing here now is just gathering up funds so that I can go as quickly as possible to buy out Beatrix. Now we've just about reached the end here. Our toy production went great, and now we're just going to finish off Beatrix and close this out, and see how much it's going to take us to buy her out. We're up to 91% of her stock at this point, and our company value is around 100 and what was it, 190 some million, 184 million. And our share prices are double her share prices, so we're doing fine. And we got this last little 9% to buy out. That's going to cost us around $11 million, and that won't take us very long to accumulate. And, you know, honestly, if we really wanted to speed this up right here, we could just go out and start deleting our own track. If we were, in fact, we're going to a little bit. We're getting rid of, like that, we got rid of that warehouse that was, we set up for that big chocolate run, and we're getting rid of the track that went with it, and the train that goes out to deliver chocolate to the warehouse and that kind of stuff. And we could, I mean, you could, if you really wanted to focus on just getting this done as quickly as possible, you could just start deleting your stuff, delete your good lines, your trains, anything to raise money if you wanted to really fast. But I didn't quite get that extreme in trying to get this done. You can see there, our price actually went down a little, and here we go. There we go. There goes Beatrix. We'll liquidate her and take the cash, because we just don't want to mess with all that stuff. And besides that, we're done.
We can make sure that nothing will change our well-tried order.
So you can see we end up with $72 million in cash. And all this stuff got queued up. But finally we get to our success, and let's see how we did. So we got our president, 15.8 on the timing. Now, keep in mind, of course, this is against very hard competitors, but pretty good job, pretty good job. Nice score, 39.6, decent score. Could have done better, of course, always could do better. Could have kept going with it. If I had more stamina, I would have just kept going with the, the hardcore build and really growing the empire, and probably bought both Roger and Beatrix in large gulps. But just the same, I enjoyed playing this one. I think it's a really good scenario. I hope you saw something in this that will help your game. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.